To install Unity, all you need to do is go to Unity's own site and download Unity Hub. Unity Hub will be a program that we will use to open all Unity versions and projects. Don't forget to create a new Unity account if you haven't already. After installing Quantity, you will see the Unity installation screen. You can install the latest Unity version if you like, or go to Installs onto Unity Hub. Click on Install Editor and select Recommended Version. Here there will be many download options on the screen that appears. If you want to develop mobile games, you can select Android build support. If you want to output on other platforms, like iOS or Linux, check the boxes here. For now, I am only checking that are relevant to Windows. Finally, there will be an option to download Visual Studio. You can choose this if you want to use Visual Studio as a code editor. In the following section, we will look at different code editors. Now, let's see how we can download to Collaboration. You can download it directly from Unity, or you can download it from Microsoft's own site. Photo alternative, we can download Ease Code from here. Click Download, install it. Whatever you want, then open it. There are a few extensions that we need to install. In VS Code, you can install these extensions from here. To open a new project, go to Projects from here. Click on New Project. There you can see many project templates. If you want to make a 2D game, select 2D. If you want to make a 3D game, select 3D. At the bottom, you can see other template options. Since 3D is the most common one, I will go with 3D. Enter the name of the project. Choose the location, click on to Create Project button. Before I start explaining the interfaces, click on Editor Preference. We will come to the External Tool section. Select the quote editor you want to use here. Visual Studio Comedy is more advanced and has more features. VS Code, on the other hand, has only basic functions but is much faster. I personally prefer VS Code, but which code editor you want to use is entirely up to you. When the project opens, you will see many panels. Let's talk about all of them briefly. Scene screen is the main place where we can make changes to the game. Any objects and models you add here will be incorporated into the game world. Hierarchy panel is a place where you can see a list of all objects in the scene. Whatever we put in the scene, we can see the reference of this object in the hierarchy. Inspector panel is a place where we can access the properties of two objects in the scene. When we click on any object, we can see the components of the object. In this picture, components are each properties of objects. Such as location mesh, we can also say that they define the identity of the object. Project panel contains all the files in the project. You can open new files by right-clicking, selecting Create. Finally, you can see the latest version of the game. On the game panel, press the play button above and the game will run. Remember that when you enter play mode, any changes you make to the game will not be saved. Change here to make it easier for you to know when you have entered play mode. We mentioned that all objects appear on the hierarchy. You can add new objects by right-clicking here. Let's make a cube, for example. Now let's move around to C. You can look around to C by pressing the right mouse button and move around to C with the double A, ST keys. You can move the cube by clicking on it with the left mouse button and putting it by grabbing and pulling the arrows. It is possible to shape this cube into various centers. When Move tool is selected, objects can be moved. When the Rotate tool is selected, objects can be rotated. When the Scale tool is selected, we can enlarge or reduce the object. Every change we make to the object can be seen as a number on the transform component. In the inspector, we can add as many new objects as we want. In the hierarchy, in order to the entire game is shown to the player through the camera. To image on the game screen is the image of the camera. This way you need to have a camera all the time. Every time a new scene is opened, a camera will be ready when you move it. You can also change the game view. You can change the size and style of the camera by changing the camera in the project section. If you want to change the background color for the scene, you can change it here. Each camera has an audio listener component that listens to the sounds in the scene. So if you put two cameras in the scene, you will see this error in the console. In Already, materials can be added to the objects with mesh on them. Materials allows us to give different color effects to the objects. You can add the material on the project panel. Then drag it on one of the objects in the sea. By correcting on the material, you can access different settings on the inspector. You can change the color of the material. Here, you can photo change the appearance of the material with metallic and smoothness. Then you turn on emission. You can make the material act like a light source. Everything normally doesn't emit light itself, but it can be used with external light sources, like port lights. Already has separate physics systems for 2D and 3D objects. To activate these systems, we need to add rigid body component. For example, let's add a 3D object to the scene. When they enter play mode, gravity works, and different objects collide with each other. Collision between objects happens thanks to the component called Collider. You can edit the collider area by saving Edit Collider, or you can give different collider values yourselves. In the size section, with the Is Trigger button, you can change the object's collateral from a physics object to a trigger. There are many different types of colliders. With the Mesh Collider, you can make a custom mesh based on the outer surface of the object. Everything we explained for 3D is also walled into D. All you need to do is add it to the rigid body. There are also special versions of Calico types for 2D. In order to, we keep all the game-related contents inside seeds. If you want to open new seeds, click on the project panel and click Seed on Create. Click twice on the newly opened object, and you can now see that the new scene has been opened. You can add as many scenes to the game as you want. Today of the scene can be seen in the hierarchy, where you may change the scene. Assign up your next name. This sign means that the scene has been modified. You can click the Saver scene by pressing Ctrl S. If you try to delete an upper scene too, the latest scene will be restored where you save again. In ProCheck, you can record all the files you delete for the recycle bit if you want a scene to be in the final version of the game. You should open the panel called Build Settings and put the scene here. Already has a system that allows us to use the same objects over and over again. These are called prefabs. All we need to do to create a prefab is to grab any of the objects and send it to the project panel. Prefabs are shown in blue color. Collect here the access inside prefabs. The changes we make here are reflected in all prefabs. You can copy the profiles as many times as you want. After copying, you can modify the original profile file and modify all the profiles at the same time. It is also possible to make read changes to the profile options. As you can see, the changes will be showed in bold text. Click here to apply the changes to the main profile. Use the animation system to move characters and objects, or to add many different effects to the game. To access animation, go to Window and here click on Animation. You can place the window next to the console by graphic and pull it, then we click on any object. A button called Create will appear. Choose where to save the animation. If you want, you can open a new folder called Animations and save the animations in it. When you make animation, there will be two different files. One is the animation control. The other is the animation itself. Now let's go back to the animation window. Here you can add animation by clicking on Add Property, or you can press the red button here to switch the recording mode and add animation with your object. In the animation timeline, we can record the current state of the objects with small dots called keyframes. We adjust animation with these keyframes. After the animation is set, you can run it by pressing the play button here. All of these keyframes are saved in a single clip. To add more than one clip, just press the Create New Cut button. Then you save the new animation in the project folder. All animations can be edited via an object called Animator. Control double-click to open it. And you can see all animations as separate types. You can right-click as Select, set as Layer Default State, to choose which animation will run first when the game starts. Click on Make Transition for transition. Speak with animations. You can set the transition conditions in the Spectrum panel. After turning off has exit time, you can make a transition between animations suddenly by setting the transition duration to 0. You can also set the transition condition for each elevation. These conditions are set with parameters. Click here to create the parameters. Click on the plus there will be for different options. Float it both at trigger. You can choose the float at ink for the Merrick parameters. Trigger at both for condition parameters. I will add both for them. You can specify the condition parameter here. In this case, when bullies through animation, transition will be provided. But when the bullies falls, the elevation will not transition. All animation will only work as look, as the animated component is corrected object. If you turn off to animated component, the animation will not work. You can add animations to any objects in your scene. You can also add animations to child objects, even if there's no elevator on them. To add other interface in Unity, direct the other cameras you see right. Click on the hierarchy, go to UI and click on Canvas. Put a scene into the mode. To see the converse more easily, with the converse selected, press the F key. Here you can add UI objects anywhere within the square. For example, we can add some text objects or image objects. Before going more into why coupons, let's talk about some basic commerce properties. You can access the commerce settings for the inspector panel. To adjust the color size, go to Color Scaler and set it to scale with second size mode. Here we can set the referral size as we want, but the most suitable size will be these sizes. This resolution is the standard full HD size. You can also take the game panel out of the free aspect mode and set it to full HD resolution. This way the OAS will look smoother. If your UI images are pixel art, then you can press the Pizza Perfect button. Commerce is set to always be right in front of the camera, no matter where the camera is. It is possible to change this. You can make the commerce a scene object with the camera by changing the render mode to the camera mode, or you can make the commerce independent of the camera with word space mode when you submit to other words. You need to specify here what the safety camera is. It is possible to add more than one converse to the scene. For example, one for the middle and one for the in-game interface. In this case, you can set which converse will be at the front in the ordering layer section. To add UI loosen, right-click in the hierarchy and navigator or section. Image and row image allows you to add images. Text Mesh Pro allows you to add text button slider. Toggle scroll wheel objects are otherwise that you can use in various situations. To add a picture in your scene, all you need to do is add an image. Also change the location of the object in the scene with directors for component in perspective. For example, where you hold down the Alt key at click. Here, you can see that the object goes to the H is on the C. If you want to make the image full screen, press Alt Shift and it will be full screen. You can change the color settings of the image in the color section of the image component. You can choose your own image in the source image section here. If you're going to upload an external image, direct your image directly to Assets. Then direct it all to the source image. Another important object is text. To add to scene, you first need to download the Excel asset called TMP. After the asset is downloaded, you can now add your text to your C. Size the text, then align it under the stage. To change the text, go to this section and type what you want. You can also adjust the size and color of the text here. Then you at the bottom to separate objects with a couple of stage. One of them will be a text object. You can change the name of the button by changing this text object. Another object is the button itself. Here you can set various color ethics at an event to the bottom. In this way, you can add functionality to the button. For example, let's see how we can close an object with a button. Another UI object is panel. Panel allows you to add a background to your seat. To basic program language, Unity is C#. The connection between C# and Unity is done through scripts. To add a script to the project, come to any object. Click Add Component, then type the name of the secret you want to write. Every time you add or modify a script in Quantity, there will be a compilant process. You can open the secret by double-clicking on whichever quote editor you are using. The secret will open the program. In C#, a sequence of quote ending in double-quoted paralysis is called auction. It can also be called omitted. The code origin is cite. Is functions where we called and executed by already. We can set how they are called by doing other operations. In already, every secret starts with two functions. Where it is opened for the first time, start and update. There are also some calls about here. These are called namespaces, and using Unity.engine is extremely important. Let's write an example quote. To quote, "We bright" was suitable for C#, so there was no problem. However, if we had written a random word, we both have seen a red warning. This warning indicates that something is wrong with the quote. You can undo all changes with the Ctrl+ZT. They make a change in the secret. Already doesn't detect this change immediately. You need to say the secret. The easiest way to do this is with the Ctrl+S key. Then when we cut already, we can see the compiled notification. If there is a mistake, already will not compiled code. Instead, it gives a wallet on the console. It is possible to understand where this wallet comes from here. Start and update course comrade event. Each script is created. Start function is a script that is called to only once when Mountain enters play mode. Let's test this feature. For example, let's set the object to destroy itself. Destroy cod I world will destroy this object, and the object will disappear from the scene when the game starts. As you can see, the object has the severe. Another way to test start is to use the backlog. The backlog allows us to write on the coastal and is written like this. As you can see, the start function worked only once. Another secret similar to start is awake. Awake runs before start. If you have a quote that you want to run before the start coblet is called, you can use awake. Another type of function is the update function. Quote little here is called every frame. Let's write a quote to update to test this. Now let's start the game. You can see the quote repeating itself or the console. Update function can be used in many places. For example, it can be used to quote recently. Check whether keyboard keys are pressed or not. Variables are used to say that are easy sharp. Therefore, variables, most commonly used and absolutely essential to them. These are the following. Sitting is a variable that contains text. Who is this variable, for example? Why you want to save the name of our player or write a dialogue. Boolean is a variable that can only take 2 hours. It can be true or false with bool. We can check whether the systems in the game are on or off. Float and eat are variables that can take the work values. Main difference is that eat can take warm numbers, while float can take other values. After the cover, everything that calls source numbers is in the old game is done with these variables. Now let's see how we can define variables equal. They are usually written at the beginning of the script, and this is where they take their first volume. In the script, equals are set to the terrible values of the variables. After the echoes today value is written, these equations can be written all functions. For example, let's see how we can display these values. In this console, let's write a special function and assign this function to about. There is more than one secret. To set the visibility of variables on the inspector, public makes the variable visible both in other court and the inspector. Private hides the variable. It provides the variable from being visible. In the inspector, if you don't write anything before a variable, it is automatically constant. Private Serializedfield allows the variable to appear in the inspector. However, it is not possible to access this variable from other quote or evidence. We can do the same thing for functions. Vary at public next to the name of a function. We can now see this function from other places. If you don't write anything at the beginning of the function, it is automatically a constant product. In C#, all commercial statements are represented by if. Today, if is written is as follows. If the condition in this paralysis is met, the code written in if withdraw. We can make an example like this. If only works if the condition written inside the paralysis is met. If you want to see the cases where if is not true, you can try more than one way. For example, we can put an exclamation mark at the beginning of the if condition. In this way, the condition inside will show the opposite. Or we can use else is written as follows. That if condition is not wet, the court in else is called. Another type of court that uses conditional expressions is switch. A condition is written in parentheses. What it will step out below are tested until this condition is with. If the variable is the same as the coalition, then the court in the section cotalic, that variable runs. For example, let's put a switch that we can set to color. Name of the color will be checked. By the switch, view will be notified which color is written. You can put other variables like lumber, alpha lot in the switch. We cannot default at the end of the switch to see when none of the conditions are met. So if none of the conditions are met, the code put in default will run. There are multiple ways to delay quote word and 0t. The easiest of these to delay with invoke. After type in invoke type out. To label the function you want to delay in, double quarters. Put a cover in between, and type how many seconds today will be. You will see that the cut rounds with exactly as much delay as we want. If you want, you can replace the unlock tile with another wire. Another delay code is corrected. The code is written like this. Code you were at here is executed before the delay. Here you specify how long the delay will be. Quote worth here is executed after the delay. To call a quoting, you need to write quote like this to most cover. The use of these delay methods is quoting. It is also much more reliable than a quote. You can use loops to run a desert quote or all, or a key for while and while. It is a type of loop that repeats the quote here until the collisions method continues forever. You can illustrate this with the following example. Remember, when using while to giving condition must be met. Otherwise, the game may give on error or crash. Another type of loop is dual. It is very similar to while, except that it executes the code inside whilst before loop starts. Last type of loop we will talk about is the phone. In the phone loop, we can calculate how many loops there will be. We do this conclusion with the consequence you see here. The first part is the initial value of the target for the loop. Second part is the goal itself. Then we reach this goal, loop will close itself. Finally, we set the iterer with a lot of the variable we use to reach the goal. In order to use lists and erase, to keep a large number of variables together, for example, how many torches are in the sea, or how many census is in the dialect, how many characters are in the game, lists are erased are very useful to keep a lot of data of the same type together. Let's start with erase. Erase looks like this, as you can see. Erase is written as a certain type of object or variable. Here we have a setthink, as these variables are placed in it. Array can also be accessed directly from earthy, where array is defined as public. You can see that other place appears in the inspector. You can put any object you want here. Each data in the array has an index. Index is always start from 0. Then our data is called the index is checked. For example, index 0 corresponds to the following data. 2/3 index corresponds the following data. To assign data to all index, you can do this. Another type we will look at is list. Lists have a context as follows. First, we divide the list. We write the quarters of the list as follows. In order to see the context of the list in the console, I will write a quote like this to start. To delete something from the list, whose review to delete the data in the list? According to its index, do the following. The last data type you will look at its dictionary. In fact, it is very similar to list. It has some fundamental differences. One of these differences is that where I take the data, both to variable itself are capable of. The variable are saved with the data. At the very beginning of the script, let's define a dictionary as an example to follow. The left is the key of the data to follow. The right is the variable data corresponding to the ski. For example, the first dialog takes the following value. We can write any number here, but for low, I will start for a while. We can extend this examples as long as we want. Just that little list. We can use art or remote codes if you want. You can clear the world dictionary with the clear code. Next property we will look at is Earth. This feature allows us to Earth. Earth is Earth system for ourselves. Normally, we have seen something similar to this in bottles. Now we are going to make our own effort. You can add a little listener by clicking here. Now, you can place any card what you want here. For example, you can place any card you want, such as operating at causing objects, collect the code of other scripts, etc. It is also possible to add a listener to the Everett. On the secret to do this, write the follow quote today. The specific listener write a quote like this. In order to you, we can use many different quotes to detect the affection of physics object with each other. Some of these quotes are OnTriggerEnter, or OnTriggerExit, or CorrosionEnter, or OnTriggerStay. OnTriggerEnter, a code that works only once, where the freed object enters the collegiate field. So, hysterical property of the freed object must be on. You can give an example like this. OnTriggerExit is a quote that is activated by the foreign object exit, the collision area. This is also called levels as elevation. Before the other object's trigger property must be all. OnCollisionEnter is similar to the old trigger I mentioned earlier. This time, if the other object is the collateral odor, this interaction takes place. We can give an example like this. OnCollisionExit is called when the foreign object access to college, just like alternative exit. These two functions is similar to update. As long as the objects continue to interact with each other, the code we rotate will work. Ensuring communication at interaction with the script can be a painful process. Let's talk about some basic methods that can be useful. You can refer scripts by showing them as public. In this spectrum, type the class name of the secret. You will refer us here. Type public or Serializedfield at the beginning. That one of the crap place the secret in inspector. Of course, however, that both scripts must be in the C. Then call the matters or variables in the secret, like this. Other way is to communicate between scripts. We are single, make your secret single to like this. Then quote from any secret you want by putting, is this in between? If you're going to lose this better, you can do it on secrets that need to be constantly referenced from somewhere else. You can write this code to avoid having, save secret on the C. Another alternative way is the access scripts or digified quotes. However, I do not talk about this way because this is a quote that will constantly search for this script in your C. It will support more resources in the background because it is constantly looking for the script. It is not recovered for large objects, but for small projects. You can use it to get results quickly while already testing. Has many models called an asset that you can download assets. You can find them on Already's official site. Here you can buy an asset you want to add to your game, or get it for free. First of all, you need to log into this site with your old audio account. After logging in, you can download anything you want from any category. Here, if you're looking for free assets, Search by clicking here where you click all any assets. You can always by clicking here. You can see the assets you all here. To add the assets to your project, go to the Package Manager and select My Assets. Find the desired asset in the list that appears and download it to your project. Your downloads will appear on the project section. Be sure to read the descriptions of the assets before project because some assets may not be suitable for your project. There's more than one way to move objects. If you want, you can use elevation, or you can achieve your goal by making low quotes. A solution. In the middle of the two is the Ooze Adavine asset. The asset I will talk about is Lootery. You can find both free and paid portions in the asset. Of this asset is commonly used in already 8 quotiers fishers that will be useful by variety. Quote. First ought to do to it to do project. Add greater deep secret. The first tool we will look at is Doable. With Doable, we can set objects to a certain vector position. As written in the duty with the quotation page, DOMU is written first with vector at 10, with the duration of 3. You can also write each UZ position of DOMU separately. There are separate ways for rotate as scale. Each 3 may record separate properties. It is possible to add extra power buttons to each TV. For example, you can write a quote like this to add elevation. There are many types of animations. You can find a list of them in the Due to End documentation page. You can put a dot next to the E's and see a list of all possible animations. Another parameter is to add a loop type. Set loop and put the number of loops in the parentheses. If you put -1, the loop will quarter your form. After the TV is complete, you can use the onComplete code for this. After writing onComplete, place label format that you want. Here you can download all these codes for the resources section of the video. Already has a system that allows us to handle many features, such as crypto properties, game variables, etc. more easily. This system is called Scriptable Objects. In order to place a secretable object, we will first use a special secret. For this, firms open a new secret in the project path. Normally, there will be tomorrow behavior, but we will not use it in the scriptable objects. Now we can add any variable. We want to use scriptable object. Now come to the project's right. Click on the scriptable object we added. You can place as many of these as you like. You can click each one to make individual changes. All changes can be made in the perspective. In this way, you can save any data you want with separate scriptable objects. In a routine, for example, let's save corrector names and corrector numbers. Now, let's see how we can display the scriptable objects. All other court. First, let's write the variables as public. We will set a separate variable for each single object. Now we can access all variables in the court object. These variables, all you need to do is put operate, and then type the label of the function. We can access variables of secretable objects, just that we access functions. After saving the secret, be sure to come to the inspect. Grab the secretable object you are here. What we call character in gives is actually many different components, working in harmony with each other. These components equals cover and input controls in. Already we can add characters in more than one way. If you want, we can call it all ourselves. If you want, we can take advantage of free assets. Since using our asset is extremely fast, let's use our free character control folder. This is the asset we will use. After adding it to your project, go inside the Super Character Controller folder and drop one of the APS or TPS character controllers into the C. You can move with double AS, T keys, or jump with the space key. Or the inspector, you can set the perimeters of all systems, such as moon mode and stamina. There is a simple double set available if you want to check it out. Already has 3 different pop as for rendered visions. According to these pop lines, we can determine visual quality of the key. These pop lines are built in URP and HDRP. Where you open your project normally to built-in, the pop land is loaded by default. Built-in has all these standard visuals. A higher level rather department is URP. URP allows you to rather superior ratios. You can get more quality with material, specially prepared for URP. There is more than one way to set up URP. You can select URP events, operated project in the Unity Hub, or you can go to the package manager in your mobile project and search for universal rather pipeline. After installation, go to the assets and right-click, click Create. In the red web tab, select URP asset. Now let's go to the project settings, and select the URP asset. HDRP is another high-quality rental pipeline. You can access it by opening a new project directly in the Unity Hub. HDRP tries to achieve the best possible graphics. Therefore, quality is more important than performance. HDRP has many different features, such as automatic folk art, fast post-processing art, fast reflection effects, etc. So which of these podcasts is suitable for your key? It depends on the game you want to make. If you're making a mobile game, to put the pipeline will probably be enough. If you're making a game that requires medium quality graphics, use URP. If you're making a game, while graphics are absolutely out of world, you can use HDRP. The best way to design your old map is to use two-terrain system. This allows you to adjust the surface of the map as you wish. To enable terrain radically called inspector, at press terrain open. Place you see in the scene is the terrain flow. You can move the map from here. You will see many settings in the terrain panel. If the terrain size is too big for you, you can reduce it here. Press here to start making your turn. There are many different options with paint texture. You can place a live texture layer. In the middle of that apples, you can place the radio out here. After other Gatorade, select rice or low water. You can add use to brush size and opacity in here. To change the brush, you can select the other options here. Now let's go to the place where we added the layer. For the first time, add a layer this time. The layer will be 2 on top of the other one. You can add as many layers as you want in this way. You can add 3s with the Add 3 option in the pie tree section. You can change the rate of the edit trees with brush size and 3 dusty. For environment desert in Unity, many assets are correct. For example, let's download the environment design asset. Here, after downloading the asset, we can find the objects we want to add to the scene in the profits poll. Keep in mind, not every asset is organized this way. It can be very difficult to politics, and some assets we can throw the profiles on our stage by dragging and pulling them. Then, we distribute these options in the scene as we want. Now, let's add a custom skybox to the game. We need to go to the lighting settings. Then go to the Environment tab. Here we will replace the skybox material with another material. Now go to the Project panel and create a new material. Set the Now place this new material in the lighting settings. You can adjust to sun settings and how to skybox V. Look through the material. There are 4 different basic light types in Unity. You can add all these lights to root hires. Directional lights is the type of lights affects the whole sea. We can also call it the sun of the sea. Many properties of this light type can be adjusted on the inspector. With color, you can edit the color of the light. Intensity regulates the brightness of the light. You can edit the shadows caused by this light in the scene in this section. When the directional light object is rotated, with the Rotate tool, sunset or sunrise effects can be issued. Point lights at which light where it starts. With range, you can set the range of lights. You can adjust the color with color, at the intensity of the light with intensity. Port lights will be type of light you will use. Most red designer capes. This is how you can give a glow effect in other options. Support lights with call-shaped light in a certain area. Just like other types of lights, you can edit the parameters of light in the color and range section. With the support angle section, you can situate the central point of the spotlight. Support light can be used to eliminate the environment, or it can be placed over the corrector's cover to give a flashlight effect. The last type of light is area light. It is a type of light used to distribute light over an area or sea. However, in order to use it, the light must be big. You can adjust light settings for the holes in via the light red panel. You can open this panel from the window. First, you need to create ideal light asset. Once the light asset in place, you will now have access to all the cultural panel. First of all, you need to know, this already has 3 different light modes. These are real-time, baked, and mixed. You will be asked to select one of these light modes in the both section of each light in the sea. Real-time lighting is used by default in ability. In this light type, the light calculations of all objects in the seat are calculated in every frame. In short, you can think of real-time as the update portion of the light. In big lighting mode, all light calculations are calculated in the editor and save as data to the computer. Most important advantage of big lighting is that it is more performed because it doesn't do every frame light populations, like real-time lighting instead. It makes lights and saves them to discourage. In order to use bait like all objects, the objects that will reflect the light must not move, because if the object moves, all the calculated lights have to be recalculated. That is why objects must be static. You can press here to make the object static. Lost light type. Mixed includes both real-time and big lighting. At the same time, you can access all real-time and big light manufacturers in your scene here. Finally, I want to show you another light setting. Go to Project Settings. Go to Play section here under the Rendering tab. Change the color space to Layer. This year's you will slightly improve to visual quality of your game. In order to, you can add adverse scene effects with the pause process. Adding a pause process depend on the pop value you are using. If you're using URP or HDRP, all you need to do is the right-click in the hierarchy and add word. Here you can add all effects with the Add All Right button. Don't forget turn on to post-process bool on the camera. You need to install a special plugin to install post-process in Bulletin Pipeline. You can find it in the Package Manager. Then we add a new pause process layer to the camera. Now we will add a new pause process layer. Then we define this layer to the component we just edit. Now let's add an empty object. Let's place post-process component on it. Now all you need to do is create a new profile. The next thing we are going to do, select post-process layer for the object. If you don't do this, you won't be able to see the effects. To add effects, just click on the Add Effect button. Now let's examine these effects in order in depth to field. You can use it to focus objects or blur the background. Less distortion allows you to bed covers angles of view. Motion bulbs fast mojic objects. You can see this kind of effect in many games. Auto exposure allows you to adjust the scene brightness. You can manipulate all the colors in the scene with color grading, contrast, and other color settings. Bloom makes the places red light touches brighter. When used correctly, beautiful effects can be created. A vignette effect can be created by darkening the corners of the screen. Green gives a green effect to the sea. Space reflections allow you to multiply the reflection effects in the sea with operation. You can manipulate the shadows in the sea. It has a wide variety of settings. To add Prosper Sync to set of parcel to scene, add Books Collider to the object you added word to. With Blur Distance, you can extend the area to effect. Remember to keep East Trigger All. Otherwise, the player cannot enter the Prosperous Sync area. In order to collect objects in order T, we first need to add new secret to the character. Let's call it Player Control. Add the following course to the open secret. First, we need to set the object to be collected. For this, let's add the rock. We'll see, let's make it appear up. Then open the profile. First, we need to add a new tag. We can add the NIV tag from here. With the Add Tag button, let's name the tag Collectible. After adding the tag, go to the object and select the tag you just added. Now let's add that box collider to it. Then enable Ease Trigger on the collider. Let's add more stones to the sea. And then let's start the game. As you can see, all collected ropes are coded in the script. Problem is that as soon as we exit label, all clouded objects become O. So we need to use a system where we can record all collectibles. We can use Scriptable Objects for this. First of all, let's create a new Scriptable object. It cooled by a code like this. Now let's create a new Scriptable object in the project panel. Let's come to the player called for the secret. And inside the quote, that will define the Scriptable object. Now we can delete the it variable and replace it with the little reference. Don't forget to place the Scriptable object on the spectrum. No, we can't stop the game. As you can see, when I collect objects, all the data is saved in the Scriptable object. With Timeline, you can use many animations at the same time. It is also possible to make all kinds of cinematic effects. With this system, Timeline has its own panel. Just that animation. You can open the panel from here. Select our object in the scene. Now create an NIV timeline asset. You can add animations by dragging objects onto the timeline. You can edit all animations on this timeline. You can start the timeline preview with this Start button here. It is also possible to add custom animations to each of the objects. You can do this through the animation panel. When the timeline is selected, you can access extra properties on Inspector. If play or event is on timeline, can start as soon as the scene starts. It is possible to start timeline with buttons or events. If you want to use timeline in court, you can use these chords you see here. There are also non-animation functions in timeline. For example, you can set the activation of objects. You can also make certain calls drawn on the timeline. For this, you need to add a signal. First, let's make a signal or a seal. Now, let's add a new signal. You can add quote on the signal via the events here. Now, let's show the signal on the timeline. Now, you can run code anywhere on the timeline. In the previous lessons, we have covered the way to say data using Scriptable objects. However, static variables are Scriptable objects can only say data in the editor. This means that everything called to be reset after the player closes and reopens the game. To save game data, you need to save it to an asset file. There's more than one way to save a game in quality. With Player Press, it is possible to save games with the Player Press feature. However, it has a very limited use, and it is extremely unreliable. It is a method that can be used if you want to save simple datas. With this course, you can save variables on Player Press. You can quote your own saving system already. Saving in JSON format is possible in this way. Very serious for Arabic knowledge is required. You can find some useful links in the resources section of the video. The most efficient way to save data in Earth is the user save system via asset stuff. My recommendation is to buy the asset called Easy Save. I have used it in many games. It allows me to save data very quickly. Here are some quotes you can use to save on Easy Save. If you're looking for a free alternative, you can use this asset. It is not flexible as Easy Save, but you can save a lot of data as a separate file. You can use this course to save data in this way. After finishing your game on OMIDI, you need to make some settings for export. First of all, go to Build Settings. You have to add as many scenes as you want to be in the game here. Otherwise, it will not appear in the final game. There are many platforms listed below. You can choose which platform you want to release your game on. You can adjust the detail settings for each platform here. You can export the game directly with the boot button. Before that, however, you need to make some other settings. Now click on Player Settings. Here you can add the name of the game, your company name or to version number. If you want the game to have an icon, you can edit here. You can change the game's most cursor here. In Splash Image, you can adjust the logo that appears at the start of the game. You can make changes on the Quality tab to adjust the visual options of the game. After doing all this, you can now export your game. I'll end this video over here. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any new videos. See you in the next videos.